Welcome everyone to this webinar brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Habitchonistim. We are an authoritative movement of reserve officers and operators from all branches of the Israel Defense Establishment who believe that strong national security priorities and staunch Zionism are necessary for Israel to be the eternal homeland of the Jewish people. Our goal is to advance a strategic agenda that will promote Israel's security, prosperity, and regional stability by educating policymakers and the public about Israel's national security needs. We are now in the second week of this war and our second week of war briefings. A big thank you to all of our viewers and all of our supporters for tuning into these briefings every single day. And of course, a very big thank you to Brigadier General Amir Avivi for keeping us informed and connected to what is happening during this war, despite his very busy schedule of literally defending Israel and the Jewish people. We thank him for his tremendous leadership at this time of war, both here in Israel and on the international level. I'd like to also give a very special welcome to a former Mossad senior officer who is joining us for this briefing today. He is a member of IDSF, and it's a very unique and rare opportunity that we have to be able to hear from him. For security reasons, his camera is not on, and we are not using his name either. If you have any questions during this briefing, please feel free to enter them into the chat. We're very fortunate to have many people joining us for these briefings, so apologies in advance if we do not reach your question. And with that, I turn it over to General Avivi.
Thank you very much, Moshe. You know, in IDSF, we have many senior officers, and not all of them are from the army. We have many Shin Bet, Mossad, police, border patrol, also, you know, guys in charge of the jails in Israel. And this enables us really to, when we prepare policy papers, when we meet with decision makers, to combine top research with vast experience of generals and commanders from their different positions, and in this way really bring huge value to decision makers. But we also send these high-ranking officers to educate the young generation, and this is very exciting for the young kids. The very esteemed Mossad general that is going to talk to you. I just saw photos today of him talking to pre-army program. And this is how we do it. We educate the young generation. We spend a lot of time on media, and we also work with the decision makers. I saw a question pop up, did Mossad fail? No, Mossad didn't fail because Mossad is not responsible for Gaza. Gaza is the responsibility of the Shin Bet and the army, not of the Mossad. Mossad has other responsibilities that they need to deal with. And probably you'll hear about that. So what's going on? I think the most important thing that happened today is President Biden's visit and full support for Israel. I can say that with the US, we are 100% aligned, talking about the objectives of the Gaza war. We agree that we need to eliminate Hamas, and we agree that it needs to be done with massive ground maneuver. We agree that we need to clean up the Gaza Strip. But then comes the tricky part. And this is what we in IDSF are working extensively now with the government, is really understanding what are the terms, military terms needed to make sure that never, ever again, there will be terror infrastructure in Gaza. So when President Biden talked, not today, but last time, he did a long interview, and in the interview, he said at a certain point, you know, I don't want Israel to occupy Gaza. Now, he didn't mean by that he doesn't want Israel to conquer Gaza, destroy Hamas, and clean Gaza out. He meant, I don't want Israelis to stay there. But I said today on national TV that, we think through terms. And this is how we shape our thinking. And his term, talking about occupation, is not relevant for reality. It's not the right term to use. It doesn't describe reality in a way that we can do with it something. And the reality is that at the end of this war, if we don't control the Egyptian border, where from all these weapons and capabilities are coming from, and if we don't have full freedom of operation everywhere, forever, like in Jenin or Nablus or anywhere else, we won't be able to fulfill the promise we did to the survivors of this one-day Holocaust of the kibbutzim. We have a responsibility, and within this responsibility, what I'm saying to the government and the army, you need to look to President Biden in the eyes and say, this is what is needed. We both agree we cannot have terror in Gaza anymore. If we don't want to have terror anymore, we need to control the Egyptian border, and we need freedom of operation. Who will run the cities? What kind of solution? I suggest we dedicate a whole webinar just to talk about long-term solutions. We'll have time to talk about that. We didn't even start the ground operation yet. We'll have months and months to talk about that. But we really need to say the professional and right thing to say, the truth to ourselves, first of all, to the Israeli society, and also to President Biden. There's no going around with that. So everybody is anxious. Why isn't the ground operation started yet? Why? Because we have still some missions to do with the Air Force before we send our troops. There is no reason to risk them when we can still really degrade the Hamas capabilities and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and set better terms for our soldiers to fight. So one day more, one day less doesn't make a difference, but it does make a difference for our troops who need better conditions to go in. Every day that passes, the troops are more trained, more equipped, more ready, more going into details of their missions. Everybody knows what they need to do. Everybody knows what the goals are. And but as one of our brave generals that was hurt in Sderot and is now in hospital, today was interviewed by Ynet, and he said, we were surprised, and now we're going in and we're going to kill them all of them, all these terrorists. And we have to be patient, and we'll see eventually the full power of the IDF when we go into Gaza. And at the moment, we are also taking the time to make sure that the Palestinians are moving south. We don't want civilians in the area we're operating. They are being concentrated actually in the area where Gush Katif was. It's a big area that you can bring there many people. We are pushing the need to open the Egyptian border, and I think everybody needs to say that it's outrageous that the Egyptians are locking the Palestinians inside Gaza, endangering them. They need to let them go out. It's something that we haven't managed yet to really convince. I hope we'll manage to do it, and we'll see the Rafah crossing open and the people going out. Because eventually we'll also have to conquer the southern part of Gaza, of the Gaza Strip, and everybody is there. It's not a good thing for us. So the Air Force is continuing all the time to attack again and again and again. We have continued to evacuate towns from the north. Hezbollah is trying to challenge us. We have spent the last few days really thinking in depth what are the chances of Iran commanding Hezbollah to start a war. It's very, very tricky. I must say that thought about it a lot, and there is not one clear answer. There are 4 reasons why Hezbollah won't attack. Iran needs them as a backup. We are in full capacity. America is deploying. The citizens of Lebanon are pressuring the other organizations. They don't want war. So a lot of pressure, why not? But there are also reasons why yes. Because when they don't operate, this really gives us all the time we need and all the power we need to destroy Hamas. We don't have to deal with 2 fronts. If they think that when we'll finish with Gaza, then we'll take all our forces and attack them, then they say, okay, if it's imminent, maybe it's better to attack now. So really, there is no real answer. It doesn't happen many times that I say, I don't know. But in this case, really, I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. If I have to bet, I'll say they're not going to wage full war now. But it's not 100%. It's not clear. When President Biden spent time here and talked in cabinet and everything, I think a lot of it is not just about the war itself with Gaza, because this is very straightforward. We're going in, we're going to destroy them, and that's it. It's more about the day after. It's more about what is the next step with Hezbollah and Iran. This is the big questions. And this is something that will have to be discussed ongoing. There is no clear answer to that. It's not simple. Israel is gaining a lot of support also in Europe. I think that I can tell you also in Israel that people are shocked. I mean, people who believed in peace and yeah, we can talk with them and maybe build a future together, change completely their views. The Israeli society is changing completely. And this will impact the society for generations. It's not just starting now and we'll have to follow up. I think for us in IDSF, it's a good chance to really get many, many people on board to say, look, we said that, we explained that, we said what is needed for Israel to be secure. And because things we said didn't happen, we paid a heavy price, a very heavy price. Now it's a chance to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And I can tell you, I spend like 20 hours a day on national TV. People are listening much more seriously. And this is the one good news I can tell you. So, Moshe, let's bring our distinguished member and guest.
Okay, thank you so much, General Avivi. To our senior Mossad officer, I'll begin with a question which many of our viewers are asking, which is if you are able to comment on the very recent blast at the hospital in Gaza, what we know about it, and who caused it.
Well, thank you very much, Moshe and Amir, and good morning for you, good afternoon for those in Israel. I'll say something in principle and something much more to details. Because since the last night's event, the sorrow event, I sat down and gathered all the intelligence that I could do, and I got a specific conclusion that is for sure was a PAJ misfired launch of a rocket and not any strike that was blamed on Israel. We have to understand that after the despicable terror attack on the 7th of October morning against civilians, babies, youth, and women, we have started a war for decisive victory against Hamas and its existence in Gaza, while they, in the same day, opened an information warfare to stop it. This is something that this is only the first event. What we have to take under consideration that we'll have to deal with this information warfare, because this is the only way for them to stop us and to still survive after such a cruel event. So we have to take this under our consideration. About the specific event, I would say that I'm giving you now details, and that brought me to a clear conclusion of that. On the last evening in Israel, in Gaza, 18:15, there was a barrage of rockets coming from Gaza to Israel by Hamas. In 18:59, there was a barrage of 10 rockets launched from this area nearby the hospital, from the seashore, and from a cemetery that we know that two of those spots belong to the PIJ areas. And those 10 rockets, some of them are for long range, came as a barrage of missiles against Israel. I would say something in general, something very specific. We have two recent proofs, two video cassettes from the same time. One of them of a live cover of the Al Jazeera and one of the others. And we have even a radar image that proves that in this specific minute, 10 rockets were coming over on the boost level of the missile, of the rocket, coming over this El Hadi El Hamadani hospital. One of them, and you can see it in the video, fell down just exactly nearby this hotel and brought to the thorough damage. This was a blast coming from a misfired launch of a rocket of the PIJ. The army today released a second conversation between two Hamas activists just after the event, which they said this is a local. They say this is a local shrapnel. This is the PIJ, and they know that it's immediately after, just 10 minutes to 15 minutes after the attack, even Hamas militaries know that it was a failure, it was of the PIJ. I can say in general that in all other military rounds with the PIJ, we have 1 from 4 rockets being launched, falling in the Gaza Strip. It's not a surprise. Even with this war, from the beginning of the war, I think up to yesterday, we got 6,700 rockets launched from Gaza to Israel. 450 of them were failed and misfired failures of rockets falling in the Gaza Strip. So it's not by surprise, and it's not surprising that one of them, a statistic, can fall in such a place. So having said all of this, from Vision, from SIGINT, from a radar cover, and from the timing that is everybody is crossing each other, I can say for sure, and of course, that we haven't seen and don't know about any activities in this area on this time of the Israeli Air Force by strikes, and even Al Jazeera that covers this specific area didn't report of any of the Israeli aircraft strikes in this event. So taking all of this, I think this is for sure Hamas realized that he has a problem, but wanted to use it as an opportunity for this warfare against Israel. You know exactly what is the soft belly of the West and Israel. You know exactly that you have to change the ugly photos, videos, and testimonies from Be'eri and Re'im and the Western Negev settlement, Jewish settlements, to the Gaza Strip suffering. And he used this event, and he will use other events in order to do so. So we have to take under consideration this time We won't stuck on such events. We have to continue. Everybody has to let us continue in our justice war to get this decisive victory without any interruptions like this false and fake information that we got yesterday and we probably will get later on. So this is my answer about this question.
Thank you so much for your expert understanding of what happened at that hospital. If we can kind of zoom out for a moment, and maybe you can speak to what else is happening in the broader arena outside of Gaza that is affecting this war.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one of the most, we are now in a war in one arena, which is the Gaza Strip. We have potential of getting into maybe even to 4 other arenas, from local ones to regional ones, maybe some say even to global ones, but I don't want to go that far. The region, the domestic ones is something that we have seen in the past. Of course, it's the involvement of Israeli Arabs and settlement inside Israel. And so far, we haven't seen this because I think even Hamas went too far, even for Arab Israelis. But during the days, I mean, when the days are passing, we have to be much more alert and much more determined in order to stop any riot or any demonstrations or any terror attacks coming from Arab Israel. The second arena is Judea and Samaria. Of course, there are, there are cells and there are lone wolves and there are organized organizations like the Hamas PIJ, and of course some Fatah elements, though they are not a part of, I think they can be influenced and can be inspired by what happened in Gaza, and maybe later on we can expect more than that. We have to be very hard and determined in order to stop any of such an attacks. But the most important, as you probably aware of, is our northern front. On the 7th of October, Hezbollah on the same day began to do some attacks, not only in the Shaba farms where it began, but alongside the Israeli border against civilian and military targets. It's including anti-tanks missiles, including rocket launching. It includes some attempts to infiltrate by units of terror units from crossing the fence and do the same like they did in the West Negev to Jewish settlements. And in all those attempts, the IDF, of course, is much more ready for that, and we are blocking so far this event. The big question is whether if Nasrallah would do the other step and go to global warfare between Hezbollah and Israel. In that case, we'll have to stretch ourselves to a great challenge in the region. And in that case, I believe it won't be only Hezbollah. I think that Iran will press other militias and proxies that they developed in our region. For example, Iraqi militias that can launch even rockets from the east of Syria, and of course, combat drones that they can launch from Iraq to Israel. They have tens of them. There are some skilled groups that were trained during the last years in Iran. And in the last stage, maybe, I don't think so, but maybe in a global regional war, Iran itself can launch one of the 2,000 missiles that they do have, big ones, ballistic missiles that can reach the range of Israel. We know that I don't want to cover the capabilities of Hezbollah, but it's a different story at all. If Hamas, for example, have only 15,000, say only, it's a lot, 1,000 rockets, Hezbollah had 200,000 rockets. And they can cover all of Israel, and the warheads are much bigger, and some of them are even accurate and can launch them to a very strategic, precise sites in Israel. So I think Israel should do the job against Hezbollah like they are doing the job against Hamas. I think we prefer now to press Nasrallah and the Iranians and this support of the Europeans and mainly of the US and President Biden, and this appearance of not only is a determined support of Israel, but the movement of those carriers, military resistance in the area, and the Marines that came here. I think it's very clear threats and thwart to Iran and to Hezbollah, and not to go in. I think the problem is that Nasrallah see it as something as a once-in-a-life opportunity to finish Israel, no less than that. And he is wondering now in his bunker in Beirut whether if he is willing to go to a live battle of two sides, Hamas and from the south and Hezbollah from the north, in order to diminish and to destroy Israel once and all. And they think and they feel that they have the power. Two things change in his mind, and this is very important to understand. The appearance of the Americans back in the Middle East, that they haven't seen them so strong and determined in the last 3, 4 and more years, in whether if it's in the nuclear negotiations, whether if it's in other launching that they got in against Americans installation in Iraq and Syria, and didn't reacted, whether if the Houthi attacks that they will not respond seriously by the West supporting the Saudis and so on, they won't get into that. But it's changed in one day, in one interview of Biden. The other thing is Israel. The thought that Israel is totally, in a huge split inside Israel, huge crisis, political crisis, social crisis, and even military weakness. I think they get and they feel that something changed rapidly in the Israeli society, in the way Israeli even leadership, this new government, and of course how the IDF is look like in the last week. So if we keep on that pressure, that IDF would look strong than ever, like maybe in 67, 73, or the traditional war that everybody knew us like, and the US will continue this support and pressure on Iran mainly and Hezbollah, we have a chance that we'll have this flexibility to deal first with Hamas, and then we'll take our decision when is the right time to initiate a war against Hezbollah. And in my personal opinion, that we should do it. Maybe not now, but not so far away from here.
Thank you. And you did mention Iran, of course. Are you able to elaborate a little bit on the role of Iran in all of this?
Well, you say 5:30, but I'll try to do my best to do it quickly. I think this is the most important thing that the Western world have to understand. Because for them, I personally was a part, even significant part of the campaign, the international campaign against global jihad, against Sunni radical jihad organizations, Al-Qaeda and then Daesh and the other organization. Iran and the Shiite fronts considered to be a part of the alliance that fought those guys, those bad guys. And it is right, it was right to this time. The problem is that when everybody evacuated and finished, after I finished Daesh and they left the area, everybody turned and there are some other business to do against China, against Russia, in Ukraine, and so on and so on. The only ones that stayed with military forces and even rebuild them and finance them and strengthen them by powers in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, and in Gaza Strip and Judea and Samaria is the Iranians. And they, if we maybe evacuated the Sunnite Islamic State from the Middle East, I think we get a permission of a Shiite Islamic State in the Middle East, which in a way can be much more dangerous, because ISIS was real terror, cruel organization, and he had some means of a terror organization. Hezbollah is an army. Hamas is an army. Iran can supply by his industrial conventional drones, and we saw they supporting even the Russians needed them in Algeria and other fronts. So Iran is not only its international regime that supplies arms, financial support, and skills and trainings for terror states, for terror groups, and even for superpowers, the bad ones like Russia. And in our region, and of course, if we will jump to the stage of being even a nuclear country, I don't want even to imagine. Think about the 7th of October when Iran has a nuclear warheads. I don't know really if we went jumping not only for a war between Israel and Hamas will jump in one day for a global war between the bad and the good. And we have to consider Iran in this route that's drawn in this war. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Hezbollah, the Shiite militias, and of course PIJ and Hamas in the Palestinian arena. This is one route, and the other route that Hamas proved all of us that he is one of those Daesh, Al-Qaeda, and other Islamic extremist organizations that are willing to do anything for their jihadic mukawama resistance against the West, against the Crusaders, against the Jews, like we saw from the others. So this war, these two campaigns, from Russia to Hamas and from Daesh to Hamas, those still roots are really real life, and Iran is in the middle, is the heart, is the center of nerve that's supporting those two roots. We have to understand it now very quickly. It's not a theory, it's happening right now. And Iran, not like the others, is a country that has limits, that can be pressed by sanctions, that can be pressed by political and even by military means if it's needed. The more we press them, the less we letting ourselves, everybody, to go to a huge regional, and from a regional maybe to a global war. And I'm not exaggerating.
Okay, that is a lot to digest. Thank you so much for sharing that. This is a very unique opportunity for all of our viewers. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise, and of course for your service to the state of Israel. Brigadier General Avivi, do you have some closing words as we're out of time?
Yeah, I remember the first time I met, we'll call him Aleph, as we call him in Israel, at his home. And you sit and, you talk to a guy that is a real James Bond, a guy that has done things that people cannot even imagine. And I want to thank you really for your amazing service, but for so many years, but also for the fact that, after an amazing career in the Mossad, you decided that you are going to continue and really take care of Israel's security by joining IDSF. And for this, I really, really thank you.
Thank you, Amir, but this time my PPK Voltaire won't be enough.
Right.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you, of course, to all of our viewers. We will see you again tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Stay safe, everyone. Take care.